What is going on, everyone? Anthony Drew Gary here, and on this week's episode of the How To Show, I have the privilege of bringing on a guest that, in my opinion, is one of the kinds of people who just fills you up when you have a conversation with them. And I'm really excited to bring this to you because I think that this is a piece of real estate investing that I have not covered yet. And I stumbled into a subject matter expert thanks to LinkedIn. I'll give a shout out for LinkedIn here. You can find a lot of cool people doing a lot of cool things on that platform. And so if you're not active on LinkedIn, go ahead and get yourself out there. Mike Kalis is going to join me on this week's episode of the show, and we are going to talk about how to build homes for rent. And this is a niche that Mike has found himself in. Mike is a landlord, and he has a business that he has created over time, renting out homes that are new construction builds that he and his family of companies have put together. And I haven't had this opportunity to share a story like this on my channel yet, and I'm really excited to get to do that again with a person who just fills you up and tells his story in a really interesting way. And so looking forward to sharing this with you. Without further ado, let's bring on Mike. Mike, welcome to the How To Show. Thanks for joining me this evening.
Thanks for having me, man. It was great to be able to connect.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that your story has enough pieces to it that I could bring you on the show multiple different times. But for this episode specifically, want to talk about some of the things you've been doing lately as it relates to building houses, new build, new construction, and renting them out. And so if you could you give me a little bit of a sense of, how your background got you to a position where that was feasible for you?
Yeah. So, we're all kind of on some sort of a journey. So we're trying to kind of figure out where everything goes. So mine started. I went to Michigan State. My heart goes out. We had some tragedy there the last couple days. So some of the stuff that happened was actually in the dorm that I lived in. So it hit pretty close to home. But regardless of that, that was where I graduated from. I worked for Pulte Homes for a few years right out of college, which was a big builder based in Detroit, which is where I'm out of. And the market was great for a little bit, and then it started to get tough. And I watched a lot of people just move away. We had the pleasure of having our market fall apart before everyone else's. So it's like in '06. And so people could be like, oh, I know, Arizona's still good. And it was for a little bit. Other people just went to different industries, and I was trying to kind of figure out, okay, well, how do you solve this? And we took the challenge, which was that nobody could sell their home, and made it an opportunity. So we felt like instead of dumping the price of the new home, what if you could just buy someone's home? So we would take some of the profit out of the new home, we'd put that into the old home. You'd give the person on the old side, a price that they could pallet, and you would take some of the margin out of the new home to be able to sell it at a loss. And that worked. And so we built a whole business off of that back in '07. And it went from 0 to 100 people, and we took it to a bunch of states, and we sold a couple $1 billion in new homes. Through that process, we started flipping a lot of property, managing a lot of homes, made money, lost money. So learned a lot of things to do, a lot of things not to do, and left that business about 3 years ago. It's still functioning, so it's still there. And partnered with a large builder in Michigan in build to rent. And I just, from my experience of kind of going all around the country, I just thought that this was just a really good model that could really work. So we did. We built about 800 homes, leased them up, stabilized them, recently sold 284 of them to a group. And as part of that transaction, I kind of left the original company, Copper Bay, to start Great Lakes Investments. So we began, by basically managing that. And right now we're building a little bit smaller pace than what we were doing before, which is 2 to 4 homes a month, strictly build to rent in West Michigan, up and down the lakeshore, with friends and family as investors, and just kind of doing the whole thing. So I'm helping to GC build the homes, manage the properties, put all the money together. And today I'm really happy to kind of share like the how to
Yeah.
me is kind of like how do you do build to rent? And I just can kind of go from the very beginning to the end of for anyone out there who's wondering like, how do you do this if you want to do one home or if you want to do 50 homes? We're happy to kind of share some of the details behind what actually makes this work.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into the actionable tips of how it would look for somebody to replicate this. And you gave me a lot of different opportunities to springboard based on the things that you've said already. I would be remiss to give a shout out real quick, as you are a Michigan State alum, and I have a groomsman in my bridal party who also was. So I have to give you a go green real quick.
All right, go white.
There it is. So Keen Zimmerman, you know what you're watching right now, buddy. All right, now that that's taken care of, build to rent. I want to start with the general premise here to make sure that people understand that you're not putting together 20, 50, 100 unit apartment communities. That this is single family homes, right?
Yeah, so that's a great model. So a lot of people make money doing that. But what we are specifically focused on is single family build to rent. And there's a couple reasons. So um, first, for me, it's what I know. So I feel like whenever anybody's talking about investing in something, the more it's square on what it is that probably the better that's going to work for you. I know you do a lot of multifamily stuff. Like,
Yep.
If you understand the asset, you understand the area, there's a gazillion ways to make money. So I always tell everybody, like, I don't have the magical thing. There's a lot of ways to make money. But the reason we like single family is a couple of things. Up until about 10 years ago, you really just couldn't do this at scale. That didn't exist. But technology's changed that. So now you can do remote showings. Rental collections are all online. It's easier to get local maintenance and things through different technology sources to be able to handle homes that are a little bit more scattered. So we've really been able to get that as efficient as multifamily. And that was always one disparity was, well, multifamily is just more efficient. It can be very efficient, but single family now is really caught up. And for 100 years, it wasn't. It was really just a mom and pop. If you have a couple of rental homes, it sort of caps out at about that. And then if you wanted to grow, you better go and build an apartment. It doesn't have to be that way. You can really continue to build more single family. And we love the multiple exit strategy. You can sell as an income stream, or you can just sell as the home appreciates and is worth more money. So it gives you a couple of different outs, depending on what the market's doing. So we really like that. And then the last thing for me is that it just makes sense in this market. It was a few years ago after I'd left my previous company that I started, I was like, okay, what can I go into that I think will be in existence in 20 years or in 30 years? Like I'm 40, so I want to be doing this for a little bit. And technology is just rapidly changing everything, Anthony. You throw out anything, and I'm like, that won't be the same. I had been a real estate broker. I'm like, is that going to be changed dramatically in the next 10 years? Probably. Like I can't see a world where it's not. And the only two things I could come up with was tech or housing. And I'm horrible at tech. So I, I just I wish I wasn't, because it sure seems like a lot of people in technology make a lot of money. But the only other thing I could think of was housing. And I mean, even other parts of real estate, I'm like, it's just not going to be the same. You think about commercial real estate, like office buildings and stuff, like, are people still going to work out of it? I don't know. Maybe in 3 years and 5 years, but in 30 years, is that going to look a lot different? I mean, it could be incredibly different. I mean, we just have no idea. But I really believe that 30 years from now, people will still live in a house. I just really do. And so if you're trying to build out kind of a career and sort of set something on a trajectory that makes sense, not just now in the next 2 years, and then, some technology blows up what you're doing. I really think that this is an industry that can deliver that, multifamily or single family or whatever you're doing. People are going to need a place to live. So that was a
Yeah.
big driver in making it happen.
I completely agree with you. I don't think that housing is going away anytime soon, and furthermore, the means and the methods that put it together is probably going to stay pretty constant as well. So talk to me a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about this. We can get off on a tangent on how the house is built maybe another time. But to build a house, you must also have a piece of dirt to put it on.
That's true.
And so talk to me a little bit about that and how you're finding these. You're probably I'm thinking to myself, is he finding, farmland? Is he finding single individual vacant lots? Is he taking homes that probably need to be bulldozed and bulldozing them? Some combination. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, you're lucky to be here in the Midwest as I am. So
Yep.
I'm in Michigan. Um, when I talk to people from the coast, which is most people in real estate that I'm working with, They're not aware that we exist. So let's start with that. One of my jokes is that I got an award. It was called the Flyover Award. It was like an up and coming company in a place that we just fly over. And I'm like, man, only someone from New York can create an award that actually insults the people that they're attempting to say thanks to. So we do exist. So that's the step one. But because no one knows that we exist in the Midwest, there's way less institutional money, way less public builders. And there's a lot of people here. I keep pointing that out is the state of Michigan has 12 million people in it. Like that's a lot of people. It's a lot of population. We have tons of jobs, lots of manufacturing. Very excited. They just announced the third battery plant for cars is coming here to Michigan. There's over $10 billion in investments into these plants. And one of them, we happen to have the closest neighborhood to. So, to just speak to, they're bringing in, 3,000 jobs. And these are very good paying jobs. There's accounting, engineering, all kinds of stuff that goes around this. And, we're very close to that. So having developments and things when you have jobs and you have no other capital and no public builders really does create an opportunity. And it's kind of been a little bit of a secret. So, I don't know. Now after this, it could be out and there's going to be, millions of people coming and trying to buy land up here in Michigan. I don't know. Or in Indiana down there.
Yeah, the dozens and dozens of people that are going to watch my channel are really going to find out about this. So you got to keep it under wraps, Mike.
Yeah, I know my mom's going to tune in tonight, so I'm going to try to keep that part quiet. But yeah, I mean, so we're able to get land at really good value. That's the long and the short of it. And that requires, I think, being in an area where you can do that. So where there's just not crazy people way overpaying for it, so anything that hits the market, that's happening. And then it takes a little bit of creativity to be able to kind of put together, the different transactions and deals to get your value down. My number is 20 grand. That's always just people asking. I pay up to 20 grand, for a fully developed lot with roads and infrastructure, sewer, water, electrical. That's below replacement. And in most markets right now in the United States, you wouldn't be able to do that. There will be a point where I won't be able to do that. But at this moment, we still can. And I think for people, if you're in Atlanta or Florida or Texas, I tell them that, and they're kind of shocked. Like how is that happening? How is that possible? And frankly, I don't know at this point. It's 2023. You'd think that, these projects from 2006 would have been gone at this point, but they just keep kind of showing up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And so that's your target metric for finding land. And it sounds to me like you're still able to find it in the quantities that you're looking for it and relatively in the areas that you're looking for it, primarily all in Michigan right now.
Yeah, I had somebody ask me today, they were like, how did you do? So you guys did 800 lots, like what, and that's always sort of the question, like, does this just fall on your desk or something? And so what I treated that project like was, I just kind of said, okay, what in the funnel is going to get me land at great value? And it was just like, put in offers, right? So my like routine in the morning was get up, shoot, like a basketball player, get up, shoot 100 free throws or something. I would get up and put in 3 offers. So, between 8 and 10 o'clock in the morning, I had to have 3 offers in on something. And sometimes that was easier. Like you'd flip open Zillow and be like, hey, look at that. There's, 3 pieces of land. Boom, they're good deals. I'll throw something at them. Sometimes it was way more opaque. Like you're like, ugh, there is just nothing today. Like what can I possibly dream up to try to be something so I can hit my little number? And what I found was even if it was something where I felt it was ridiculously overpriced, somebody wanted, 100K for a parcel that you could fit, 10 homes on or something, and I thought it should be worth 50. I would offer them 50. I would write it all up, put it all in writing and send it to them. And what it would do is start conversations. And you never know where, there'd be some agent listing on them who'd go like, well, this is insane. So do you even want me to present it to them or like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, yeah, I do, like you're supposed to, that's your job. So go ahead. But I'm like, if you think it's really bad, here's what I'm looking for and here's what I need. And I mean, if this one's not going to work, no big deal. But what else do you have kicking? And I mean, you'd just be amazed at how many agents, when you start talking to them, they start chatting about, well, I got this guy who's trying to sell his land and he's, and then you start getting into off market stuff and other things. And then you just keep hitting that quota. But if you keep like getting that amount of offers out, you will get, certain ones that come back and hit. That's just, I mean, it's just a numbers thing.
That is a fantastic little factoid there, and hopefully everybody takes that to heart, is that you can't let yourself say no for other people, and you just have to keep at it. That same thing goes in,
it's just grinding, right?
Yeah.
It's just, there's nothing like super cool about like sitting there with a computer and like typing in like all the parcel IDs and all that just over and over and over, and then having somebody tell you how insulting you are, you know. but but that's just, it's just grinding, and
That,
if you do it, it'll work.
that's fantastic, though. So, talk to me a little bit, Mike, about the types of research that you are doing before you lock up a piece of land.
Yeah, so this was sort of a learned lesson, right? And I learned it on a piece of land I bought. We built a home in Livonia, Michigan, which is a very developed suburban area, right? Like everything is developed, and we were on a street that was built in 1950, and there were two lots that were left from like just never built, and one popped up on the market 20 grand. You just fill in a house here. So we built it. All went well. One of the guys that was out working on the house called me and said, "Hey, you're not going to believe this, but a sign just went up on the lot next to us." I'm like, "Great, this one's going really well. We'll just move right over and do the lot right next to it." So bought it, and because it was just such like same thing, we'll just didn't really do the due diligence on it that I should have. So this was one of the first ones that we did. Just kind of thought, yeah, it should be the same. So we closed on it. The zoning required a half-acre lot.
Yep, sure.
The survey came back at 0.49. Uh, so so we closed on this lot. I don't know, it was like 20 grand or 25 grand. It was right in our little wheelhouse. And okay, 0.49. And we showed up to the city, and the guy said, "Well, it shouldn't be a problem. Like, all you got to do is come to the zoning meeting and just request an exemption. You're 1/100th of a tick off. Like, who's going to care?" I'm like, okay. So we showed up to the zoning meeting, and 100 people cared. So we were going into it, and I was wondering, like, gosh, why are there so many people here tonight? There must be something cool going on in the city. And I sat there while, an 85-year-old man explained how he loved this vacant lot and watched the deer. They had a 6-year-old girl stand up and talk about how she liked to play out there with her dolls, and this was like the best thing for her to grow up. They literally had 100 people. We had to sit there for like 3 hours, and they denied our variance. And the guy that had told me it wouldn't be a big deal was like, "We vehemently will deny this variance and won't allow building to happen here." And I'm like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." So anyway, things to do in due diligence that are really important. Number one, make sure that whatever you're going to build can be built on the lot. So there are certain variances. You have to have a lot that's the right size. And yes, 1/100th of an acre can actually make a difference. So you got to do that. We will do surveys. We'll do a topo, which gets the grade for the land. We'll also do all the corners and measurements so they can come back and tell you that, yeah, this is actually the size that you're talking about. We will actually do a lot fit for the house. So we'll pick it before we close. We'll take, the footprint of the house, we'll put it on the lot print, we'll put it on the survey, and then we'll take it to the city and say, here's the house, here's the lot print, here's where it's going to all fit. Are there going to be any problems with this? We'll go and get sewer, water, tap fees, any electrical hookup charges, gas charges, and then we put that all into a due diligence package. I'm amazed at the amount of lots where I'll think, oh my gosh, this lot's $7,000. Like this, I can't lose. And then all of these other things, you pool them all together, and all of a sudden you have like 70 grand in lot stuff, and it gets killed. Making sure that the water and the sewers on the right side of the street. We closed on stuff where, they go, "Oh, well, the water and the sewer's over there." I'm like, okay, well, great, can just put it here. But like running a whole snake under the road and doing all this is going to add cost. And what we found was there's almost always a price, right? There's always a price to fix your screw up. But if you can get that price ahead of time before you close on it, you have a lot of leverage. The other thing is by doing all of this, it costs you a little bit of money. So running a survey, having somebody come out, and mark all this stuff, put it all together, it's a lot of legwork. But it also creates a lot of leverage to go back to the seller. So like if you set this whole thing up, usually we would need 60 days or 90 days of due diligence because we're doing all of this. And I would put no EMD down. So we'd say, look, my EMD is I'm going to get you, I'm doing all this stuff, right? I'm going to be investing my money. And if any of it comes back, I will tell you right away that it came back wrong and it's not going to work for us. And now I'm coming back and saying, look, I have a survey. The house I want to build is this footprint. The city won't let me do it. So either I'm going to have to build a much smaller house, or you got to, so you might have to come down in price, and you start to kind of get these like leverage points off of actual facts. Yep. And usually a seller can get their head around that. The sewers on the other side of the street, it's going to cost me $7,000 to bring it across. It's also going to cost every single other builder who tries to buy this lot $7,000, and they're all going to find out about it. Like, so either you can cover that cost now and I'll buy the lot, or I'll just have to walk because I'm not going to pay it. So there's like an entire chunk of due diligence that if you do it right, you should have all your site costs, your lot costs, and then you should have all your house costs before you even close on the lot. And the reason I'm mentioning it is I've messed that up. When I was first starting, I gave you the one story. Um, it's a lot of work. And a lot of people don't want to do all that work to really find it out. And then they wonder why, now I've closed on a piece of land. Now you're in it. Now you own it. What are you going to do? Right. And then you find out that something's going to cost an extra 20 grand. Now it just messes up your budget, and, your numbers can get blown really fast.
Yeah, this is fantastic. And folks watching, this is as tactical as you can be. This is the actual
Yeah, maybe this
step
is a
by
little in the weeds, isn't
No,
it?
it's perfect. This is the step by step what you need to be doing to make sure that you're getting yourselves into a situation where you understand what you are up against. So now that we have a piece of land that we feel good about, what do we start to think about when it comes to our architecture? What's our house look like? What have you learned along the way? What are you building now that you know is going to be desirable in your marketplace? And maybe how did this evolve over time?
Yeah. So definitely been some evolution. And I'll give you kind of the direction of the evolution. We have slowly stripped away things that you would consider to be maybe a little more extravagant, or things that you need to make it more simple. And we found that the best place for build to rent is to be the most entry level new construction home if it was for sale. But that is going to absolutely be the most luxurious rental home, right? So uh, consider, if we build a 2,000 square foot, 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath home with an attached 2 car garage, even if we use the most basic carpet and amenity, things within the home, that home is brand new. And you're going to be competing against like a 1972 home that just isn't even designed close to like what a brand new home's going to be, that's got weird paint and different carpet and all this. And that's like the other rental home, or this one's brand new.
Mhm.
And just by being brand new, it's better. So we've kind of learned to sort of take some of the things out of it. Big things that I found add a ton of cost and no value. Brick. So when we go into a neighborhood, putting brick into a home can be $20,000 to $30,000, and a lot of cities will force you to put a brick wrap. Usually those don't even look cool, right? Like you're just like why is there 4 feet of brick going around the house, right? And what's even funnier is most builders now, because it's just like, they it's a facade, right? So the house isn't like sitting on the brick, it's just kind of like stuck there, right? And
Yep.
if it fell off, it wouldn't affect the house. So that can add a lot of cost, and somebody is not, for every 10,000, you need to get about $100 more in rent. So if I had a home sitting right here that was vinyl siding but looks nice, has kind of a farmhouse look to it, and then one over here that's brick, would you really pay $200 to $300 more for this one? And the answer is no. Like if I put them both there, that they're not going to. So getting that cut out. And then you just kind of run the gamut, is simple walls, straight lines, less lumber. We go all the way down to 2x4 framing instead of 2x6,
Mhm.
which, you go, well, it saves maybe a couple grand. Saved a lot more when lumber went way up. Um, you know, just everything, going through and having a great architect that understands value engineering. I'm really blessed. TK Design is our architect out of Detroit, and they worked with production building. So they understood what like Pulte was looking for in these other guys. And if you get with a custom builder, they're just not gonna, like, it's like you're speaking a different language. You want to be with somebody where you're like value, 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 value. Like, how do I, less lumber, less lines, more openness, and if you get with the right people, I mean, they can save you tens of thousands of dollars just in a lumber package. Interesting thing, we found this floor plan. It's called the Cali. So for anyone down south, it's built by D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton builds 80,000 homes a year. 16,000 homes a year are one floor plan.
Mhm.
Um, it's an 1,800 square foot, 4 bedroom, 2 bath ranch on a slab. And if you look at it, you go, seems nice enough. But the reason that they sell the heck out of it is because they can build it at a really low cost basis. Like these things will sell at $179,000, right? So there's a reason why they'll sell 20 in a neighborhood a month, is because it's a nice floor plan, but the value like is incredible. And so in build to rent, we're looking for the equivalent of the Cali. Is how do you go and build something that is everything someone wants, nothing more than that, and allows them to be into the best rental home in the market without crushing your price, so you can't make any money.
Okay. I
If that makes sense.
It totally does, and it screams efficiency. But there can be a negative connotation to that, and I don't think that that should be necessarily what's focused on here, because you are providing a value in the marketplace that people want and need. When somebody has the choice between the 1970s rental house and the 2023 new build, that is going to factor into their decision, and I just wanted to draw that out a little bit more. So talk to me. We'll shift gears a little bit here. When you have your design ready to go, what's your time frame? How long does it take from sticking a shovel in the dirt from the first time to having a lockbox on the door and people are coming to see this?
All right,
And
so
in a perfect world.
there's two parts to this. So I have my big, hairy, audacious goal is to make it 30 days.
Okay.
That's my insane goal. And I'll talk to people and they say you can't do that. I'm like, no, you can and we will, but we're not even close. At this moment, I mean, realistically, from the time you close on it, it's gonna be 6 to 9 months to have a completed home. Maybe with COVID, I would have shaved a few months off of that and gone, but now it's felt like everything's been a little longer. We're starting to bring that in. There are companies that absolutely can build in 60. One of my all-time favorite escapades was when I was working with a builder. They had a model, and their grand opening was a week away, and they built an entire home in 7 days. And it just proves you can, right? Like it's very doable. They just brought in lights. You just had like everybody there at once. They worked with the city to have inspectors out there to just sort of like electrical's done, go. I mean, it like literally could have been a video game or something, but to just go like, wait, they just built this home in 7 days. Why does it take 9 months? Like, really, like this doesn't make any sense. And so there's a lot of different steps to kind of tighten that up. But in a realistic world right now, if you're kind of doing stick built framing, it is in that 6 to 9 month range in Michigan.
That's helpful. So we're going to touch on financing for just a little bit here, and we could do an entire episode on financing one of these. And I just want to appreciate for a moment that there is a difference between somebody wanting to do one of these and somebody who has either some institutional capital or some investor capital, probably trying to do a lot more of these. Let's spend a little bit of time on the person. I'm going to try to do one of these this year.
Cool.
Am I able to go to my local community bank and get a loan to build a construction rental property like this?
Maybe.
Okay.
And I would say, I mean, maybe. So there's a couple of different lenders and people out there that will do well, let me see how to start. Like, so there's kind of different tiers to this. So there's really like, hey, I'm going to do one home.
Yep.
You might be able to just kind of use your own personal balance sheet and income to be able to do that. Like that might work. You might be able to do two, you might be able to do three, you might be able to do four. Most people after about four, it seems like that option starts to drop off unless you have income that's just like you're, an athlete or something that's making $10 million a year. You're gonna probably hit some walls with your debt to income ratios, because they're just gonna look kind of out of whack if you get too many of these homes and things put together. But to do it on the small basis and go to a local bank and be able to put it together, the answer is probably. Once you get outside of that amount, then you start either needing to have a little bit bigger balance sheet to be able to support it, or you need to bring in outside capital, or you need to go to some lenders that are going to be asset-backed lenders. There are a few of these that do a good job, and it's going to kind of depend on your tier and how much interest you want to pay. So I will start with, the first house I flipped, I paid 25% interest. A lot of people tell this story because they were doing this in 1980. I was doing this in 2008 when rates were like 5%, right? So the reason I had to pay that was because I had to go to a hard money lender. I was 23. There's really no reason they should have even given me that money. Like that was probably a bad idea from their perspective, but the deal could support it. We were buying like a $40,000 house, so the actual interest amount was not as brutal to the deal, and it all kind of worked. And what I can say is over the last 20 years of doing this, we have just slowly like tried to get to a better tier of financing and a better tier of financing. I think that it's important to always do what is like correct for wherever you are in life. Dave Ramsey kind of teaches the baby steps, and I really think that there should be like 3 steps after it. It's all like we're like, okay, cool. So I'm out of debt. So now I'm ready to be Mark Zuckerberg. Like, let's go. And like it feels like real estate is what much more one of those slow builds. It's like get rich slow. My dad was a stockbroker, and he always asked, hey, you want to make a small fortune? And I'm like, sure. He'd be like, give me a big one. So so that's kind of the philosophy of real estate is really if you don't have any money, you can't do this. So I guess that's kind of like my first point is you need to come to this with 20% down.
Yep.
You need to have cash reserves of like 6 months for each build that you're going to do because you're going to get hit with expenses and things that don't make sense. And if you're not there yet, I'm not really speaking to you, Anthony, but I mean anybody that's out there,
Yep.
if you're still in college and you don't even have a job yet and you're like, man, I'm going to do build to rent, it's like maybe not. You might want to kind of build to this sort of thing before you can tackle that. So save up a bunch of money. Get 50 grand as a down payment, get another 50 grand in the bank to cover all of the problems and things that might happen. And then probably get another 100 grand just so that if you lose the other 100 we were just talking about, you're not totally in a hole. Like I think that, all of that is not a bad place to go.
Yeah.
So one is just being ready. The second is if you want to ignore all of that, the lenders to go to are asset-backed lenders who are going to fund this kind of thing.
But in a general sense, even if you're finding yourselves in a situation where the interest rate is probably more than you're used to seeing with whatever you're researching for mortgage rates right now, you have to remember that the amount of time that you're building this house, Mike has referenced is somewhere in the 9 month range. And if things go terribly wrong, it's only going to probably be a little more than a year plus or minus. And then there's an opportunity once you have an actual asset to refinancing and refinance it into something a little more permanent, more likely than not. And so
Yeah,
there are,
and to back up on that, Anthony, there are 2 steps. So the first step is get a construction loan, and then
Yep.
the second step is to term the loan out onto financing. A construction loan is going to be slightly more risky,
Yep.
so a lot of times you'll pay a little bit more interest on that, and the bank will want a little bit more down. They're going to look at your loan to value and your loan to cost, and they're going to have some metric that they're willing to loan on, kind of based on your background and how much you've done. Loan to value on a construction loan might be like 65%. So if the home's worth 300 grand, they might loan up into the 170 mark or something like that. In your loan to cost, they might go as high as 90%. There actually are some lenders that'll do 100%, but you're going to pay really high interest if you're going to kick up there. Most banks are going to want to see 20 or 25. So they're looking for a little bit more down on the construction loan. The trick to the build to rent, one of the things that's super attractive, is for people that are familiar with kind of the BRRRR, buy, rent, remodel, refinance. You're able to do that with new construction in an interesting way. So you should be able to build the home out and come away with a 20 to 30% margin if you're doing this correctly. And most banks will be able to do that term out loan at maybe like a 75% LTV. So it is possible that your capital's, because we just scared everybody with the amount of money that you need, but your capital could be tied up for that 6 to 9 month period, but you might actually get it all back after 6 to 9 months, and now you have a performing house.
Yep.
And that's that's sitting on 25% equity, which could be 70 to $100,000 in value. So like there's big upside, right? So you could be sitting on, say, on the light side, 50,000 in equity on a home with an asset that's spinning off, 700, 800, $1,000 a month. And then there's sort of a like, oh, I see, now I got my money back. Now I could do it again. Then I could do it again. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of them really, until you start to go, wow, there's actually like a lot of equity here. And there's like a lot of income that can come off of this. And it's curiously leveraged to 100% of your cost, but actually not really leveraged as to value. And that's why, even though the market's been softer recently, I mean, it definitely has softened up a little bit. I still look at it and go, gosh, but this is still a really attractive position because we're coming into a home that could be worth 3, and in our cost basis is at like 2. So the market would have to come down 30% before we would even be upside down on $1 of equity. And then that would be a scenario where you would probably continue to hold, which is what we plan to do anyway. And so you just kind of keep renting it out. And there's a certain longevity to this. If your hold time's 6 months, you could lose money. If your hold time's 3 years, you might. If your hold time's like 20 years, it's kind of unlikely that over the next 2 decades, homes are going to end up being worth less than they are now. That's.
Yeah, so to take this and look at it maybe from a different side of the equation, if you were to be able to buy $300,000 houses for $200,000, anybody watching would say, "Yeah, I'll do that all day long." This is
Yep.
essentially what you're doing. You just have to do a little bit more work to get there. So let's talk for a minute about property management. On the bright side, one of these houses that you build is brand new. And so theoretically, it should have very few problems. And so in your situation where you're doing this at scale, you may have some property managers or some staff or some folks fulfilling some of these roles in getting tenants in, collecting payments, servicing houses, things of that nature. But for somebody that's going to try to do this or the one or two off scale, the property management aspect to this probably shouldn't take a whole lot of time. Am I understanding that correctly?
Maybe.
Okay.
So I think from having worked and managed 5,000 homes and done that with a lot of people who own one or two homes, I think it's really important that people manage a home for themselves for a bit. So if you're like starting this, it's almost like a rite of passage or something. Because what I found is if you've managed, so if you're talking about doing your own, build to rent home, that's awesome. Like get that out. I know you already have some other rental properties, you start putting that together. There'll be some point. I found it was around a dozen where you're like, oh my gosh, this is driving me crazy. Like I just, there was just always a vacancy. There's always something going on. But with one or two or three, you can kind of handle it. And there's like just enough where you'll feel the pain so that someday when you pay somebody, you'll be grateful. And what I found is if people haven't felt that pain, they're just ungrateful. Gosh, I'm paying this guy $80 a month, whatever the management fee, right? It's like nothing.
Right.
And over here, it's like, man, you're handling some tenant that's not paying and yelling at you about some faucet, all these other issues. And so if you've been through the pain, you'll appreciate it. Is it passive? Sort of. So it's not as passive as buying a REIT. If somebody just wants exposure to real estate, you can invest in a fund. We have a fund. You can invest in that. You can do it alongside of us. But then you have a little bit less control. So if you want to have full control over the asset and everything that you're doing, you're going to have a little bit more work. There's going to be some things that you'll have to do. But, is it a full-time job? No. Do you just get some annoying calls at times when you don't want to get an annoying call? Yes. Can you do it? Sure. You certainly wouldn't be the first person to tackle property management and make it happen. The biggest things: set up electronic payments. Make that work. Get a good go-to vendor so that you kind of know, like, hey, when it's a handyman thing, I got this guy I can call and he can go and fix it. And if you're going to lease it yourself, I highly recommend doing the remote showings. It's very efficient. Most people just want to get into the home, and there's various different companies that you can go with that do that.
Yeah, very helpful there, and it starts to peel back some of the layers of ambiguity for somebody that's maybe not done this before. That you basically have different levers that you can pull, and how much control do you want? How much control do you want to give up? And how much effort do you want to put in with your own hours of blood, sweat, and tears? So let's bring all this together, Mike, if we can. If somebody is looking at you and your story of how you've gone and you've done this at scale, are there aspects to your story that are replicable? And if you were to do it all over again, what's maybe one thing that you would change?
So much would I change. Now, there's a lot that. So first of all, the great thing about real estate is everybody has a house. They're all over the place. We all understand how they work. You just don't have to be a doctor or something to like understand how to do this, right? So I really believe anybody that's a hustler, that's willing to just throw out offers and willing to put things together, read a lot of books. I guess it's blurred out here, but I like, every real estate book on the planet, I think I read it at some point, and they can make it work. So absolutely, anybody can do this. There's going to be sort of a scale that I've watched everyone go through. The first place that everyone starts is, hey, Mike, you're in Detroit. I heard that I could buy a home for $500. I looked at a sheet and my return would be infinite. And then and And I'm like, yeah, I can go show you that one. And then we kind of moved through, hey, wait a minute, I could buy a home that's $100,000 and like a slightly better, not a like D minus, like I'm going to be, ransacked while I'm like walking out to the house. I can go to a C market and get like an 80 or $100,000 house. I can go to a B market. And I never understood when I was first starting why the really experienced people went to the A markets, because I would put it on a sheet of paper and I'd be like, your return's like 7% on your money. Like that's horrible. Like, look at this. I can buy this $70,000 home and I'll make 20%, right? Like, you're a fool. And then what I would see happen is his 7% would end up being like 9. It would like work and be like slightly better than projected. And my 20% would be like -4, right? Because I'd have like, some furnace that blew up and a tenant that didn't pay for 4 months and all this other stuff that happened. And so if somebody could have went back and told me at the very beginning, get as quality of an asset as you possibly can like pull off, and don't base it all on the percentage return of the price, even though mathematically, like for the math people, they'll just go crazy with this. But like, because the intangibles that you're going to see in like a higher quality property are going to help it pencil out, and the value of that higher property, at the very end of the day, is going to appreciate higher in a decent school in a better area than this like dump that is selling at this really, like, you can make this a very, very spiffy dump. It's only going to go up so much, and it's going to be kind of capped. And the other thing is in a market downturn, that we've all been through, is what happens is the D markets just go to like zero. The C markets go to nearly zero, because people all of a sudden go, oh my gosh, I could afford to live in an A or a B. So, I mean, people are always going to try to get to quality. They're going to be forced out of quality based on their budget. So you're protecting yourself by getting into these good markets. If somebody could have explained this to me when I was like 22, that would have been a big boom. The other part is stay within your range. But I think if I could go back and just say, like, just build it like brick by brick, it'll be okay. 100% growth is kind of good. 20% growth is kind of good. It doesn't have to be like wild, insane metrics. And like, maybe I wouldn't have such gray hair at this point. I don't know.
There was so much practical application and wisdom that just came out of the last couple of minutes, and I really appreciate you doing it, Mike. Overall, I feel confident that this is not your last time on the How To Show. We're going to find other things to talk about, because I need to just continue extracting knowledge from you for the betterment of society, my man. And
man, I love chatting with you, Anthony, and I know you're going to be super successful, and it's fun to get a chance to talk.
Oh, I appreciate that. And so, without any further ado, would you be game for a couple of rapid fire questions known as the How To Cues?
You got it. Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1: what is the best book you've read in the last 12 months?
Okay, so I've read a lot of different real estate books. I recently got this one. This is Raising Capital for Real Estate. If it's not blurry.
It doesn't look like a face, so it's still going to be blurry, but that's worth blurry.
But it's Raising Capital for Real Estate. It's Hunter Thompson. I don't know that anybody's going to know the guy, but he runs a little podcasting group about raising real estate capital. And so many books, I can read the title and I can tell you what they're about. And this one actually like gives you tons of practical details on like the specific email to send out. It's really good. So there you go. There's one.
An actionable book recommendation. I really appreciate that. All right. Question number 2: what is one podcast that you subscribe to?
I really, I do like the, I have a construction one I listen to. I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's like the construction guys. The real estate guys is another one. And then like a lot of like Patrick Bet-David, like him recently. I think he's kind of cool. So yeah.
I can get behind that. All right. What is one app on your phone that you could not live without?
Probably Zillow.
There we go. Okay. So next question: what is something you've spent $100 or less on recently that has brought you immense value?
Oh, $100 or less. Well, it's $200. Can that still?
We can go with that.
You know what's crazy? So I got my son a 3D printer, and it was $200, and it was a Christmas thing, and it's gotten me thinking a lot about like 3D printed houses and all kinds of other stuff. But I can't believe for $200 the technology It's crazy.
I can't believe you're telling me that you bought one of those for $200 because I can remember 10 years ago, or I guess 13 years ago now in architecture school, it was $200 just for a little bit of sand to build something out of it. So that's wild.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's about $200. So
That,
all
that,
right, that's kind of double your number, but
that works. We'll go with it. And so my final question is, Mike, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they connect with you?
Probably a couple places. You can go to greatlakerealty.com. It kind of shows any houses that we have for rent. The other place really is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, just search Mike Kalis,
Yep.
Great Lake Investments.
Yeah, I'll link to both of those in the notes for the show. And so, Mike, again, really appreciate you being on the How To Show. Thanks for being with me.
Thanks, Anthony.
Special thanks to Mike for joining me on this episode of the show, and I highly recommend you check out some of his links that you can get in touch with Mike if that's what you're interested in. And if you would like me to do any follow-ups or have any questions for Mike, leave them in the comments down below. I'll make sure that we get answers to those. And as always, you can leave comments to let me know how I'm doing, let me know if there's feedback for this episode or other episodes that you want to see on the show. That's where I aggregate all that information, so let me know what you're thinking. As always, you can subscribe to the channel, be the first to know about new long-form content on Wednesday, short-form content every other day, and just generally have a good time with me in the comments and through the camera. If you're looking to transact real estate in the Indianapolis market or the greater Indiana market, you can get in touch with me at indiedwell.com or in the comments down for that as well. Or if you're looking to get in touch with somebody transacting real estate in the Michigan market, leave me a comment down below. I bet you Mike can help put you together with somebody doing that. Till next time, this is Anthony Drew Gary, host of The How To Show, signing off.